I didn't notice when the respect disappeared. I only noticed when it was gone. It wasn't a moment I could circle on a calendar or retell as a story. It was more like discovering a room in your house has been slowly emptied while you were still living in it. You walk in one day looking for a chair that's always been there, and it's not. You stand for a second, confused, wondering if it was ever real, or if you're just tired. We had been married a long time by then. Long enough that our routines had outlived most of our conversations. Long enough that we could move around each other in the kitchen without looking up. Long enough that friends stopped asking how we were doing and started assuming the answer. We had history, shared responsibilities, a mortgage that had been refinanced twice, a closet full of coats from different versions of ourselves. Nothing was wrong in the way people usually mean it. There was no betrayal, no raised voices, no slammed doors, no secret phones, no bruises, visible or otherwise. If someone had asked me how my marriage was, I would have said, fine, maybe tired, maybe normal. That's the word I used most back then. Normal. The first thing that changed was the way she spoke to me when no one else was around. Not cruelly, not sharply, just a little flatter, a little more instructive. Sentences that used to sound like suggestions began to sound like conclusions. I noticed it when she would tell me what we were doing instead of asking, what we were eating, where we were going, when we were leaving. It was subtle enough that I couldn't object without sounding petty. I told myself this was just efficiency. We were busy. We had jobs. We had obligations. Decision fatigue was real. Someone had to take the lead, and she was good at it. That's what I told myself. That it didn't matter who decided, as long as things got done. What I didn't admit was that I had stopped deciding anything at all. It showed up in small ways. I would reach for something at the grocery store and feel her pause beside me. That quiet pause that says, that's not what we usually get. I would put it back without comment. Not because she told me to, because it felt easier than explaining myself. Because it felt childish to insist, "At home." I began to wait before speaking. I would run a sentence through my head first, sanding it down, removing anything that might cause friction. I learned which opinions were worth keeping and which ones only complicated things. I learned the tone that kept the peace. I learned how to agree without fully agreeing. None of this felt dramatic. It felt like maturity, compromise, the kind of thing men our age are supposed to be good at. The money came next, though I didn't see it that way at the time. We both worked, but over the years her income grew while mine stayed steady. I was proud of her. I said that often, and I meant it. She was capable, driven, respected at work. I liked that about her. Or at least I liked liking it. Somewhere along the line, shared finances turned into managed finances. Bills got paid automatically. Budgets got adjusted. Purchases got discussed. Then they got approved. Then they got questioned. Then they got delayed. I stopped buying things for myself unless I could justify them out loud. Not to anyone else. To her. A new jacket. A tool I didn't strictly need. A weekend trip with old friends. I would rehearse the explanation before bringing it up, like a teenager asking for the car keys. She never said no outright. She would just ask questions. Do you really need it? Didn't you already buy something like that? Is this the right time? We have a lot coming up. It was always reasonable, always calm, always positioned as responsibility that I started to feel irresponsible for wanting anything at all. At night, lying in bed, I would scroll through my phone quietly while she slept. Not because I was hiding anything, because it felt like the only place where my thoughts didn't need permission. Even then, I kept the brightness low, as if my private attention might disturb the order of things. The intimacy faded without a conversation. It didn't stop. It became conditional, tied to mood, to timing, to how the day had gone, to whether I had said the right things or avoided the wrong ones. I learned to read the signs, the sighs, the way she turned away or stayed facing me. I told myself this was normal too. Long marriages change. Desire evolves. We weren't 20 anymore. I didn't want to be the man who complained about that. I didn't want to sound needy or crude or entitled. So I adjusted. I waited. I accepted what was offered when it was offered. What I didn't name was how small that made me feel. Not rejected. Managed. The strangest part was that she wasn't unkind. She still asked how my day was. She still laughed at familiar stories. She still showed up for family events and sat beside me. If anything, she became more composed, more efficient, more correct. It was as if the messier parts of us had been quietly removed. I became useful, dependable, predictable. I handled what I was supposed to handle. I stayed out of the way where I wasn't needed. When friends would joke about marriage, about wives running the show, I laughed along. I nodded. I recognized myself in the stories and told myself that was just how it was. That this was the price of stability. That every man I knew was making similar trades. But there were moments when something in me resisted. Brief flashes. A tone she used in front of other people. A correction she made mid-sentence. A joke at my expense that landed a little too cleanly. I would feel it then. A tightening. A heat behind the eyes that I never addressed it directly. I told myself it wasn't worth it. That calling it out would make it worse. That I would sound defensive or insecure. So I swallowed it. Like everything else, the erosion wasn't loud. It was administrative. I remember one afternoon standing in the garage, looking at a box of old things I hadn't opened in years. A jacket from a job I no longer had. A pair of boots I used to wear on weekends. A notebook with half-written ideas in it. I felt embarrassed holding them, as if they belonged to someone else. A younger man. A man who had more say in his own life. That I put the box back on the shelf and closed the door. The final realization didn't come during a fight. We rarely fought by then. It came during a conversation about something trivial. Plans for the weekend. She laid them out. I nodded. She moved on to the next thing. I stood there, listening, and felt a distance open up inside me that had nothing to do with her. That I realized I didn't feel consulted, or needed, or even particularly present. I was an accessory to a schedule that would continue just fine without my input. That was the moment I noticed what was missing. Not love, not affection, respect, not hers for me, exactly. Mine for myself. That I had allowed my voice to soften until it disappeared. I had mistaken compliance for peace. I had confused being easy with being valued. I had traded my edges for quiet. Looking back, I don't blame her. She stepped into the space I vacated. She took on the weight I put down. She adapted to the version of me I became. There was no villain in this story. Just two people responding to what was in front of them. I didn't lose the relationship all at once. I lost myself in increments. In small silences. In unchallenged decisions. In the steady habit of deferring. When I finally understood that, there was no explosion. No confrontation. Just a clear, calm knowing. Like waking up and realizing the weather has changed, and it's been cold for a long time. That was when I knew it was over. Not because of what she had done, but because of what I had stopped being. Asterisk if you made it this far, you're a legend. Leave a like and subscribe so I know you're one of the real ones. Thank you.